Io ringrazio Antonio per questa presentazione, ringrazio anche la dottoressa Paola Cadeddu che mi ha invitato a questo convegno e mi fa molto piacere essere qui con voi. Bene, I'm switching English since my paper is in English, and I think I feel quite more comfortable in speaking in English when we're talking about academic stuff. So, but anyway, you can also ask me questions in French or in Italian, which is, by the way, it's totally okay. As far as, well, the title of my paper, which is quite, I think, controversial / creative / probably questionable, when centripetal and centrifugal forces clash, deconstructing spiral progressions of rhythm in the original and translated Mavis Gallant's short fiction. I wanted first of all to say that I'm not here to criticize translations, because this is a risk that everyone can encounter, because I'm comparing some translations. Because of course it's for the sake of this paper, but really, since I know that there are some translators here, and this is not meant to criticize, rather to improve, to pinpoint some of the crucial aspects that have to be identified while decoding some complex texts as those of Mavis Gallant. For those who don't know Mavis Gallant, she was actually, because she died last year, one of the most renowned Anglo-Canadian English-speaking writers in Canada. But she resided in Paris for, let's say, 50 years. So we could say that her whole writing career was done in Paris. But curiously enough, she never wrote in French, although she was bilingual. And actually, she has repeatedly come over the issue of rhythm in her prose, and in prose in general, over the years. The first topic, which could be related to this, let's say, rhythm issue in her work, could be related to her choice to write exclusively in English, as I was saying. Although she has never overtly established such a connection between her writing in English and her inner rhythm in her essays or interviews, she kind of rather left it suspended in the air. Rather, she has always repeated that such a choice, so the choice in writing in English, was not a choice, rather something which was connected to the language of her imagination. So, being an expatriate who voluntarily had chosen to reside in Paris, Mavis Gallant has contributed for decades to the New Yorker short fiction section, which is quite astounding as an outlet of publication of short stories, with some 155 stories, if I remember correctly, and apart from that, a collection of short stories and several literary criticism and interviews, and all of this in English. I would have also a note on the editorial, let's say, the publishing process which her short stories are undergoing in Italy, but I'll leave it, it's sort of a criticism to publishing industry, but then I'll leave it for afterwards, for later. On the matter of writing in English, in a 2011 interview by Jason DeYoung, when questioned about her character speaking to her and driving her or not in the creation of the voices, she claimed that whenever she wrote about foreigners, and I quote, the story is written so that characters are speaking the way a French or German or an Austrian person would speak, but not making it sound foreign and cute. Though I'm bilingual, I only write in English, you know. I don't write in French at all. Jason DeYoung questioned, have you ever tried to write fiction in French? And Mavis Gallant answered, no, and I don't want to. I'm an English-speaking writer. Nothing ever imaginative or creative occurs to me in any language but English. English has always been my language of imagination. End of quote. But if English was her language of imagination, is it possible to claim that the language of our imagination matches the rhythm that we, as single human beings, feel more consistent to our nature? So, in order to provide some ground to this hypothesis, and then I'll connect with the spirals of rhythms and centripetal and centrifugal forces, I'll mention an example from what I believe is shared experience, whenever we acquire a second or more than 2 languages. I'm referring to the subtle feeling that there's always a language in which we feel more natural to express ourselves, as we progress in language acquisition. I mean, in which we feel more at ease when having to deal with some communicative situations, be they either informal everyday life situations or more formal ones, just like a conference, either logic-bound or creative-bound linguistic context. There are some people to which this never happens, actually, but I bet that most people in this room today know exactly what I'm referring to. I will not venture into the cognitive linguistic implications of this phenomenon, of course, as this would go beyond the scope of this paper, but I believe this is a crucial premise to take into account when talking about language used in its creative potential, which is inevitably linked with the creation of a rhythm, which is not occurring naturally as an organic expression in a given real context, therefore the creation of rhythm in fiction. Rhythm and the construction of it in prose fiction, and in particular in short prose fiction, has always fascinated me, also because, being a translator and teaching translation, it is one of the crucial issues when trying to help students encode their translation from a methodological point of view, and at the same time, in order to recreate the so-called voice of the source text. It would be impossible hereby to mention all the theoretical and methodological references for this paper, as this is the result not only of years of translation and linguistic studies, but also of years of experimenting with my students of the translation courses in Cagliari. Suffice it to say that crucial to the elaboration of this paper are studies by Ritmo, Antoine Bermond, Franca Cavagnoli, Andrea Minelli, Susanna Basso, Anna Dott, Christian Henault, and all the main studies performed on Mavis Gallant fiction, in particular those by Janice Cuddy-Kiefer and Leslie Clement, and on Canadian short story cycles and their structures by Gerald Lynch. Speaking of definition, because we have to provide some definitions, some context to this, I would like to refer to the definition of rhythm by Michonique as fundamental to develop the reasoning which is to follow. And I quote, « À partir de Mavis, le rythme peut ne plus être une sous-catégorie de la forme. C'est une organisation, disposition, configuration d'un ensemble. Si le rythme est dans le langage, dans un discours, il y a une organisation du discours. Et comme le discours n'est pas séparable de son sens, le rythme est inséparable du sens de ce discours. Le rythme est une organisation du sens dans le discours. Et le sens étant l'activité du sujet de l'énonciation, le rythme est l'organisation du sujet comme discours, dans et par son discours. Moreover, a further quotation from Michonique defines rhythm in language as the, and I quote, organisation des marques par lesquelles les signifiants produisent une sémantique spécifique, distincte du sens lexical, et qu'il appelle la signifiance, c'est-à-dire les valeurs propres à un discours et à un seul. Ces marques peuvent se situer à tous les niveaux du langage, accentuel, prosodique, lexical et syntaxique. End of quote. My English is better than my French, actually. Therefore, if further levels exist beyond lexical meaning, they enrich narration with further senses, which are provided by the intimate connection between rhythm and the meaning of the fictional discourse, which is shaped by it. For the sake of this investigation, reference should be made also to Antoine Bermond and his deforming tendency of the letter of the text, which is so useful whenever we teach translation, so that we tell our students what not to do. But on the theoretical ground, we had some discussion also with Paola, what is this letter of the text? But I think that if we define it closer to the rhythm of the text, and the definition of rhythm by Ritmo Michonique, we're a little bit closer to what actually this letter of the text could mean. But we'll investigate further. And especially, I thought it was significant because Antoine Bermond said that, I think it's the 7th, or the 6th, I can't remember, probably the 7th, of his deforming tendencies is called the destruction of rhythms of the text, which occur after rationalization, clarification, expansion, ennoblement, qualitative impoverishment, and quantitative impoverishment happened. And by the way, there are no English translation of the text, so. Therefore, all this to say that I would like to explore how Mavis Gallant shapes the meaning of her fiction according to her personal style of creating fictional rhythm. To do so, I'd like to refer to one of the, let's say, yes, more important, more significant interviews, which appeared in the 1978 special issue of Canadian Fiction magazine, which was entirely dedicated to her. And Mavis Gallant was questioned by editor Geoff Hancock on several topics, and in particular on how the creative process for a story begins. And Mavis Gallant said, and I quote, "A story usually begins for me with people seen in a situation like that," and Geoff Hancock reported that she locked her fingers together. So this is the starting situation out of which Mavis Gallant fiction usually starts. The knot either relaxes or becomes locked in another way. What it should be, I can't tell you. But that's what occurs to me. A situation has a beginning and as much ending as any situation has in life. The story builds around its center, rather like a snail. And Hancock said, "I've noticed that in your stories. They have a spiral to them, not a straight line, linear sense until recently." End quote. Which is crucial, in fact, to detect if the further layers of meaning attached to the rhythmic composition of the short story has to be conveyed, as it should be, in the translation target language. And which is exactly the case of some example of the centripetal and centrifugal rhythm that I will mention later on. Moreover, this idea of knots, of locked situations, surfaces also in one of her most renowned short stories, Varieties of Exile, whereby Lynette, the protagonist, says, with reference to the encounter with refugees in World War II Montreal, that, and I quote, "Anything that I could not decipher, I turned into fiction, which was my way of untangling knots," end of quote. It is precisely the idea of untangling content knots that lies behind the peculiar use of rhythm by Mavis Gallant. It is significant, however, that when questioned to define her use of rhythm, she did not come to a clear, objective explanation, although metaphorical, of metafictional awareness as far as content was concerned. In fact, in her essay, What is Style?, she said, and I quote, "If I read a passage aloud, I'm conscious of a prose rhythm easy for me to follow, that must be near to the way I think and speak. It seems to me to be my only link with a finished work." End of quote. Therefore, it is personal expression of rhythm. So her personal expression of rhythm, her personal feeling of rhythm, sort of was transferred in her short fiction, and she considered her short fiction closed, finished, ready to be published, whenever she could not feel the seams. So it was seamless, just like a very smooth surface. And speaking of this, the same more recent interview, if I've mentioned the same more recent interview with Jason DeYoung, reasserted, and I quote, "In a sense, you are in your work because the rhythm of the prose is your own. It may even be the way you speak, although that's not often. When you meet writers, they don't speak as they write, or write as they speak. But there is a way sentences are formed in your mind that is individual to every writer, unless they have been to some writer school and had it flattened out." End quote. She was highly critical of writer schools. And therefore, if Mavis Gallant's rhythm takes the unconscious shape of a spiral, therefore both centripetal and centrifugal movements should be at work in Gallant's short fiction in order to untangle the knots of the situations she portrays or retangle those situations. So lock again those situations in another way. One short story I would like to mention to support this hypothesis is The Late Homecomer. Published in the July 8, 1974 issue of The New Yorker, but finished earlier, although not in time to be included in the Pegnitz Junction collection, the Late Homecomer of the title is Thomas. The Pegnitz Junction short story collection is a collection of short stories dealing with post-World War II Germany, and I quote, "the possibilities of fascism in everyday small lives." Thomas recalls returning to Berlin in the spring of 1950 after 5 years of captivity in France. He learned from his mother, a woman who had always lived in poverty, that she had remarried to a man of moderate means, this so-called Martin Töppler. Thomas, at the age of 16, was expelled from a prisoner of war camp in Rennes when an order was passed that all those under 18 years old had to be repatriated. He was assigned to a druggist in Saint-Malo as a free worker, in inverted commas. He came to know the druggist's young daughter, who committed suicide when her parents locked her in her room for corresponding with Thomas, who was a German, therefore the enemy. Thomas, when he arrives back in Berlin, he's 21, and he's disillusioned and decides to stay with his mother and Martin. I would like to focus right now on some examples, because what I'd like to highlight is how this movement are created, but they are not immediately perceptible. That's why I think that a translational analysis has to be done prior to any translation, because it's not just the content, but also the retrieving, the rhythmic algorithm which goes along the translation. So I would like to concentrate on some specific part of the short story, because of course to understand the whole rhythm of the short story, we should read the whole of the story. But anyway, the crucial part of the text. So the beginning, the ending, so the thresholds of the text, the seuil of Jeanette. And the title, of course, which is the first threshold. The late homecomer, almost untranslatable. The Italian translation translated this late homecomer as the rimpatriato. It can be questioned, it can be not questioned. The idea is, since there's a lot of play on this word, it had to be one single word. Therefore, there could not have been two, because it would have been easy to say I reduci rientrati in ritardo in patria. Just one single word. And I think that the translator did a good negotiation on this. But, I mean, this is not my scope for today. Of course, there are some other inner thresholds, which are represented by, let's say, the introduction of Thomas' family. So, his mother, Thomas, his mother, his brother, and his father. The order in which they are presented is not like this. First we have his mother, then we have Thomas, then we have his father, and lastly his brother. And they're all presented according to a specific pattern. So if you excuse me just 1 second, I'll just load the examples, because it's better to focus also on the punctuation. Because of course rhythm is provided not just by the choice of word, but by the choice of pauses, by the choices of full stops, commas, and silences. I hope that nothing strange shows up. It's always the risk when you have to go ahead project your USB key. I will. I will. I will. Okay. So the first quotation is, of course, the beginning. When I came back to Berlin out of captivity in the spring of 1950, I discovered I had a stepfather. My mother had never mentioned him. I had been writing from Brittany to Grete Westermann, but the Töppler, engraved on a brass plate next to the bell pull at her new address, turned out to be her name, too. This is not standard English. As anyone who has the slight knowledge of how standard British prose or English prose should be arranged can easily spot out. Because usually, when I come back to Berlin, out of captivity in the spring of 1950, I discovered I had a stepfather. Okay. What I underlined is especially occurring in the second part. Her new address turned out to be her name, too. I just don't want to look at the translation right now, but I just want to identify the person. So this is the presentation of the mother. Then we have, but he would have to move quickly. Now, Thomas, he's referring to Martin, so his stepfather, saying that he wanted to renovate his 2 apartments he has inherited after his wife died in the bombing of Berlin, and she's still underneath the heap of, let's say, of relics there. And so he said, but he had to move quickly, otherwise his inheritance, his sole post-war capital, his only means of getting started again, might be snatched away from him for the sake of shiftless and illiterate refugees from the Soviet zone, or bombed-out families still huddled in barracks, or for latecomers. This last was a new category of persons, all one word. It was out of his mouth before he remembered that I was 1, 2. He stopped talking and then he sighed and said, "Ah, yes, yes." This last part is how Thomas described his stepfather to sort of idiosyncrasy. And you could almost, for those of you who know German, you could almost hear some German people saying, "Ah, yeah, yeah." Okay. We have the presentation of Thomas, and we have again a 2 at the end. It's a huge stone at the end of the sentence. By a common accord, there was no mutual past. So we're progressing further in a short story. They're making a toast, and the mother is the only one who proposes a toast to Thomas' older brother, Chris. Then my mother spoke from behind the cupped hand and said she would like us to drink to her missing elder son. She looked at Martin and she said this, in case the survival of Chris might be a burden, too. So it's easy to underline that the living part of the family are just like presented with this huge 2 at the end of the sentences, which is crucial to maintain in the translation, because it's not normal. It's not normal to have in English prose this 2 with a comma and at the end. So it has a huge amount of meaning. It's impossible to use it with just one single word, of course, because Italian has no, you cannot say anche. It's impossible. So you have to negotiate, okay? But there are some, let's say, ways of solving this. This is why I wanted also to go back to this sentence again, and speaking in terms of centripetal and centrifugal movements, because in this short story, of course, there should be so many more examples, of course, to point out, to understand more clearly these forces. But the idea is, this is just an example. So here you have, he would have to move quickly, otherwise his inheritance, his sole post-war capital, his only means of getting started again, so you are sort of going away of the knot. You're sort of exiting, so you're going out, so it's a centrifugal. Might be snatched away from him for the sake of shiftless and illiterate refugees from the Soviet. It's as if the spiral goes back again. Shiftless and illiterate, bombed out families still huddled in barracks, or for latecomers. It's impossible not to notice the fact that it's perfectly, it's a mirroring structure. So you have his inheritance for latecomers, homecomers. So you have the same amount of words, and here you see that the focus is the fear that the late homecomer might snatch away his inheritance. Because there are also, he just hits the table with his hand and says, why has he come back? He's referring to a Belgian, but of course, if you start decoding all these underlying parts of forces going, spiraling, and taking out all the content, of course, you realize that it's about Thomas that we are talking about. As far as this milestone of 2, well, I said that we have to compare and contrast. So no criticism is expressed, just a further need for awareness. When I came back to Berlin out of captivity in the spring of 1950, I discovered I had a stepfather. Translation is: quando tornai a Berlino dalla prigionia, nella primavera del 1950, venne a sapere che avevo un patrigno. I'm not questioning stylistic word choices. I just want to focus on rhythm. And this rhythm does not match the importance of the rhythm that is at the beginning. Here you have, it's some sort of course, there's an incidental sentence, but phrase, but it's not, it doesn't give the same rhythm. Because this venne a sapere che avevo un patrigno is not, I discovered I had a stepfather. There are many layers of difference in the meaning, of course, between scoprì e venne a sapere. Venne a sapere seems casual. Scoprì, it's my process of discovering I had a stepfather. And the pain that is concealed under this rhythm, shifting, spiraling. And of course, something more. In the second part, in the other quotation, le famiglie bombardate ancora accampate nelle caserme, o di chi dopo tanto tempo rientrava in patria. This is translation late homecomer. Here we have an expansion, because of course it was felt the need to provide more information. Quest'ultimo gruppo di persone apparteneva a una nuova categoria identificata da una sola parola, i rimpatriati. Let's go back to the English. This last was a new category of persons, all one word. The seamlessness of the English conceals what otherwise would be too painful to acknowledge. And then there's già, già. Okay, the difference between yes and già is huge. Yes is just an admission of something that is happening. It's a yes, yes, you accept it. Già, Filippo Toni would say that it's doppiagese. So I'm disclaiming, okay? I can provide further examples. I don't know if we have some more time, but I think that we have to get closer. 5 minutes, okay, perfect. So, that's something which is also significant, and it's also related to the fact that rhythm can be seen as a spiral of forces. After the first quotation, so immediately after this paragraph, Thomas does a specific thing, which is he presses his hand on the brass plate next to the bell pull. And I just want you to read the quotation. I put my hand over the name, comma. I'm also reading punctuation. I put my hand over the name, comma, leaving a perfect palm print, full stop. I say, comma. I suppose there are no razor blades and no civilian shirts in Berlin, but some ass is already engraving nameplates. It's so rare to find swear words in Mavis Gallant's fiction. And also, at the end, here we have a further example of these forces. And I quote, "My mother, washing glasses without soap, smiled at me, forgetting to hide her teeth. I re-examined the tile stove in the parlour, the wood and the black briquettes that would be next to my head at night, and the glass-fronted cabinet full of the china ornaments God had selected to survive the Berlin air raids. These would be removed to make way for my books. For Martin Töpler did not imagine he could count on my pride, but that I would prefer to starve rather than take his charity, or that I was too arrogant to sleep on his dusty sofa. I would wear out his soap, borrow his shirts, spread his butter on my bread. I would hang on Martin like an octopus. He had a dependent now, a ravenous, egocentric, late-homecoming high school adolescent of 10 to 1. The old man owed this much to me. The old man in my prison camp who would have sold mother and father for an extra ounce of soup, who had already sold their children for it. The old man who had fouled my idea of women. The old man in the bunkers who had let the girls defend them in Berlin. The old man who had dared to survive." So, it's clear with the examples how these forces drag the reader under. It's impossible for the reader to escape this fictional rhythm Mavis Gallant is creating. And I have to do an appointment as far as translation is concerned, because this girls defending in Berlin was translated as women. No, they were not women. They were not donne. They were ragazze. As he was an adolescent and he was asked to go and remove the white clothes that the women were hanging to say that they were surrendering to the Americans. And the old men who had dared to survive was translated as the old men, I vecchi che avevano avuto il coraggio di sopravvivere. It's much heavier who dared to survive, che avevano osato sopravvivere. In order to conclude, because I think that we're almost there. So the idea by now, because of course this is a research in progress, so that centripetal movements are built on increasing rhythm in order to lead to the center of the knot, while centrifugal movement is built on a slower paced rhythm, which is used to take readers away from the central knot and playing around at the same time with interpretation of the short story, so as to hint at locked situation while leaving the reader to connect with the pieces together, because Mavis Gallant is difficult to understand. She never provides overtly the way to connect all her pieces together, but it's on the other layers that she's connecting them. So several knots have to be untangled in the life of Thomas, of course, who, just like many other Gallant characters, is an exile, and as Mavis Gallant as well. Rhythm as organization, disposition, and configuration of an ensemble is crucial. First of all, in the interpretation of the underlying and fundamental layers of meaning, of which a translator needs to be aware in order to embed them into the target language, and provide readers with a similar reading experience. However, this is no definite conclusion of this study, which is in progress and which is evolving as long as research and translation activities progress. And thank you so much for listening.
Ringraziamo moltissimo Isabella Martini del suo intervento e tra poco avremo occasione di porle qualche domanda